Hello everyone, Ryan Hassan here from the Centre for Healing. Very, very excited today to be joined by Torrin Woodley from Berry Street, a non-for-profit organisation helping children, young adults and families. The reason I've got Torrin on today is because I'm very excited for the month of September. The Centre for Healing, we are partnering with Berry Street, and so 10% of all course sales, that is our Families of Addiction course, our practitioner trainings, root cause therapy, embodied processing, our courses on trauma, all courses, 10% of the sales will be donated to Berry Street for the month of September, which I'm so excited about because we're very, very aligned, which is what we're going to talk about with Torrin today. So Torrin, thank you so much for joining me on the call today. And I'm really excited for people to hear about maybe the history of Berry Street first, because I was reading, it started in 1877.
Yes, we did. And look, thanks so much for having me on the call today, Ryan. We're really thrilled to be working with you and your colleagues and your team as well. So thank you so much for having us. Yes, we've been around for a really long time, so more than 144 years. And so we were originally founded as the Victorian Infant Asylum, and we worked with orphan babies and sometimes vulnerable mothers as well. And throughout the last 140 years that we've changed names, we've changed looks throughout the time, but we've always worked with vulnerable people. So early on, we had an office that was based in Berry Street, and that's how we got our current name. So we have, I guess, incorporated, so we do work with babies, but we also now work with children, young people and families, because we know that it's all really interconnected and we do need to look at everything from a family level as well. So we've come a long way in that time, but still really go back to our roots as well.
Yeah, I love that. Wow, that's such a long time, 140 odd years. That's amazing. I've had a business for like 8 and I'm already worn out, so that's amazing. I'd love to hear about some of the initiatives that you guys are running there, because I think it's really amazing. One of the reasons we were really drawn, myself and Melissa and Matt were drawn to reach out was because, we were, now we're training therapists and we're doing more educational courses. We've also been trauma therapists for years, and we're kind of working with all of these adults who are still struggling with their childhood trauma from when they were a baby, when they were an infant, when they were a toddler, going through adolescence and that kind of thing. So we're trying to fix the broken adults, so to speak, the traumatized adults. So I think it's wonderful what you guys are doing with that more, early intervention, trying to get to these kids as soon as possible after they go through these really, really difficult life circumstances. So I'd love to know some of the initiatives that you're running there and what you're doing.
Absolutely. So in terms of what we do, we've got quite a diverse range of programs, and each year we work with about 35,000 people in the community. So it's quite a significant number. And so I guess in terms of who we work with, we have our family violence programs. And so that is direct response to family violence, but it also might be longer term programs in terms of supporting people with accommodation or access to community services as well. And that's about half of what we do. About 18,000 people we work with are direct response to family violence, which is quite considerable. We then have our education services. So we have the Berry Street School, which has 4 campuses, and that runs on our Berry Street education model, which is a trauma-informed approach to learning. A lot of the young people at our school have perhaps previously disengaged with mainstream education because of traumas that they've faced. And so we really focus on getting young people ready to learn so that they can get the best outcome out of their schooling. And we're also really excited. So we've got our school campuses, but the education model has now been taught to more than 40,000 teachers Australia-wide. And I think particularly in this current state that we're in, we've got schools that are reaching out and saying this is really traumatic for our young people. Perhaps trauma was seen as something more relevant to a lower socioeconomic school, whereas now we realise that's not the case at all. It's relevant to everybody in this current day. And so that's a program we're really proud of, and we're certainly spreading the word about the education program.
Amazing.
We also have out-of-home care. So out-of-home care is for when it's not safe for a young person to live at home, and that might be things like foster care or residential care. So we commissioned a study in the middle of last year during, I guess, the when we were in the thick of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we found that an extra 4,500 Victorian children could enter out-of-home care, like foster care, because of the pandemic. So because of tensions bubbling over at home. And that's a really critical number. That's so serious. And so we want to make sure that we can do our best to reduce that number and support families so that doesn't happen, but also gear up our system so if it does, that we can really support those young people as well. So we have out-of-home care. We have our trauma and therapeutic programs as well. So we have a statewide therapeutic counselling service called Take Two, and that works with children and young people up to the age of 17. And we really make sure that that service is quite involved with the young person's care as well, because we recognise that it's so important for the adult in a child's life to recognise their needs and how they can best support them as well. So we want to make sure that that really is quite a wraparound service. And then lastly, we also have our early intervention programs as well, and that really speaks to a lot of what we do. Is that we recognise that it would be much better if we didn't have these big numbers and we could intervene early, and so that, you know, it might put you out of business if we were successful enough.
Please do that, Torrin, please. I'd be happy.
Yeah.
I'll go back to being a tradie or something.
It'd be a great problem to have, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And so that's programs like, for example, we launched a pilot program this year called Safe Care, and that works with parents who are at risk of child abuse and neglect. And we work with them before it gets to the situation of out-of-home care, and we teach them how to nurture their child and things that perhaps might be assumed learning for parents, but it's not necessarily the case. You know, how do you safely bath the baby? How do you childproof your home? And it's a really hands-on in the home program to support these families, because it's certainly our experience that every parent wants to be a great parent, and sometimes they just need a few more tools in the toolbox. So that's another program we're really excited about.
Yeah, so I love all of those programs, and that one you were talking about last is so important, because you're right. So everyone wants to be a great parent. No one wants to be a crap parent, and we just don't have a lot of the tools and the understanding, you know, from a point of view. Like, a lot of the stuff we teach is about, you know, attunement with our children, being emotionally available. As you know, a lot of people don't understand the damage of being on your phone all the time around a child and that kind of thing. And you know, even I've struggled. I've got a 2.5-year-old, and I remember, with all my knowledge and everything, I remember coming home from the hospital and like, what do we do with this?
Yes.
It's quite
Start
confronting.
from zero.
Exactly. And, you know, a lot of people are struggling financially. There's other stresses in their life and that kind of thing. And to have you guys be able to come in at that early stage and say, here's some tools, let us teach you this, and it can start to ease the burden and the stress that a lot of parents feel, which then has the flow-on effect to their children, which then helps them grow up to be much more feeling like a whole, happy individual, which is a ripple effect, which is so amazing. Which, God, I hope that puts me out of business, Torrin, please.
Yeah, I'll see what we can do.
Amazing. I think all those initiatives are so good. I'd love to hear, maybe, do you have just like one or two stories of an individual that you've helped along the way? I think people really resonate when we hear what it looks like from a story point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think as we've been talking, a story that perhaps resonates with me, because I feel like it's quite relevant to what you do, but then it also speaks to that early intervention side as well, is that last year we supported a young woman who had come to Australia as part of an arranged marriage with her husband. And so she was a long way away from her family and her sense of community. And she found herself in a pretty difficult situation where her husband was abusive and he was conducting criminal activities in their home as well. So she fled in fear and ended up in a women's refuge, and it was there that she discovered that she was pregnant. So this young woman decided to return to her husband because she didn't want to be homeless with a new baby, which is absolutely fair enough. And the cycle of abuse might have continued for her, except her husband was actually arrested and put in prison for conducting criminal activities, but also for threatening to kill her. So it was a really difficult situation. And we met this young woman when she was 7 months pregnant, and she actually came to meet Berry Street staff with her husband's mother, who was trying to bully her into campaigning for his release. So it's an incredibly complicated situation. And our staff are quite well trained in difficult situations like this, and they were able to work with this young woman and sort of really educate her on the risks of violence to her child and intervene early for that child so that they would be able to grow up in a life free from violence as well. So we were able to find her some accommodation and really connect her in with community services. And she will have long-term impacts from the violence that she has experienced. And that's where programs like yours are so critical to be able to support people. But she's also made a really brave decision to, step out of that environment and support so that her child comes into the world and does get to live free from violence as well. So that's a really great one where I guess there's both the early intervention in some points, but a lot of trauma has been experienced for that young woman and we'll continue to support her as well.
Yeah, and just the people, from our point of view, a lot of people that we work with, in a similar kind of situation, we go through these circumstances in life and then we feel trapped. And when we feel trapped, we feel very alone, we feel very isolated. So we feel more alone. It's like this self-perpetuating cycle. And then for to have people like you come in who are trained and can help, get her out of that situation, all of a sudden she doesn't feel so alone anymore. And she's like, I feel supported, where there was no support whatsoever. Now I feel supported, and that creates such a wonderful positive impact. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about her story, because how much it's good for her, but then the child as well. And it's just amazing.
And you're right, it's so important. I think particularly family violence is a big part of that, is isolating the person and disconnecting them from the community. And we've seen about a 30% increase in family violence referrals throughout the pandemic, and particularly around times of lockdown, because we know that tensions are building up in the home. And so it is so important that we're able to reconnect victim survivors with their communities so that they have got that real support network and they know what's out there that they can access. So it is really important.
It's so important. And that probably was going to be my next question, is sort of some of the trends that you've seen during the last 18 months or so with the pandemic and the lockdowns and that kind of thing. Obviously, you mentioned the domestic violence one, which you said a 30% increase, and I've heard that from other similar people in the industry as well. So is there anything else that you've noticed in terms of trends in the last year and a half?
Yeah, look, I think the long-term effects are they remain to be seen, which is scary in itself. But certainly, that family violence space is huge. And we know that when we go into lockdown, reports of family violence to the police actually go down. And that's because perpetrators are in the home and victim survivors can't access services. So that's a real problem for us, that we are trying to support people, and how can we provide resources that people can access in a way that they feel safe and they can do so. So that's a real challenge. And when we come out of lockdown, we see a real spike in reports. So it's being able to then support those people as well as we can in that sense. So look, I think a lot of it does remain to be seen. Education is a big one, as we touched on, and really I think worldwide there is a lack of foster carers, and it's a decreasing trend. And if we've got more young people going into out-of-home care, we need to reverse that trend as much as we can. So there's plenty of challenges in the industry, but also lots of great work being done as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. It's yet to be seen the longer term, or even the mid to long term impact of what's going on. Midterm being a lot of people who are going to come out of this with, a drinking problem or a drug problem and that kind of thing, or in a much deeper depression than they may have been before. And then also longer term, I wonder what this impact's going to have on a lot of our children as well, growing up in a place where they're isolated, everyone's wearing masks and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's an interesting time.
It's such a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it is. But I just want to honour you for all the work you're doing at Berry Street. I'm so happy that we've connected and we're able to partner up here. And like I said at the start, 10% of all course sales in the month of September through the Centre for Healing, we're going to donate to Berry Street, and we're going to help these babies, these kids, toddlers, young people, families. We really want to help out and see this positive ripple effect, moving through this hard time. So where can people get in touch with Berry Street if they want to find out more?
Absolutely. Look, our website is the best place to go. So www.berrystreet.org.au. We've got a heap of resources on there. And if you've got any questions as well, you can contact our team through the site.
Amazing. Torrin, Thank you so much for joining me today. If anyone has any questions, hit me up in the comments below or reply to the email. And check out Berry Street, the amazing work that they're doing. And have a beautiful day, Doran. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ryan. You too.
Awesome.